Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to episode 6 of Grimm Tuesdays. So today I am going to be reviewing The Musicians of Bremen. Now this is a story about talking animals, and you may be thinking, oh, that's a nice story about cute animals. I mean, that can't be that bad. Trust me guys, this is probably one, if not the most shocking story by the brothers I have read so far. No joke. This was probably up there as one of the most uncomfortable things I've actually read so far this year. And that is not just horror, but all the things I've actually read this year. So before I get on with this video guys, I want to give a very serious warning here. That if you are triggered by animal abuse or animal endangerment, then maybe steer clear away from this book, because I read a lot of messed up stuff, and reading through this, even I felt a bit uncomfortable. So this story opens up with a man who has a donkey. Now the man is not really important. He's just mentioned in one sentence and never mentioned again, but the donkey is one of the main characters. And this man, who I presume is a farmer of some sort, and this donkey is a working animal. I don't know if it like pulls a cart or if it like works on a field or whatever, but this donkey is getting old, and the farmer or this man decides to kill this donkey when that time comes and to skin it. And the donkey says, right, I'm not going to have any of this, and decides to go to a town called Bremen to be a musician and to make music. And along the way, he comes across a dog that is in the middle of the road or on the side of the road, and it's crying, and the donkey asks the dog, why is he crying? And basically, he was saying that his master was beating him because he was getting old, and he ran away. And the donkey tells the dog, well look, I'm going to this town to play music, would you like to come with me? And the dog says, yeah, sure, I'll come along. And then at this point in the story, I was thinking, okay, this is a animal based story, and all the animals that we are going to be meeting apparently were extremely mistreated and threatened with death or violence, or possibly both. So I knew, reading through this story, every time that an animal came up, that they were going to introduce a very uncomfortable event that happened to them in their lives that resulted in them running away. So when the donkey and the dog are going on their travels and their journey, they come across a cat who I think is sitting on the wall, I'm not entirely sure. But the cat tells the donkey and the dog that the cat's teeth were getting really, really worn down and dull, and it was getting, I think it might have been getting a bit old and lazy to chase the mice. It just wanted to lie down in front of the fire and just relax and not do anything. And it told the dog and the donkey that the owner, because of this, wanted to drown the cat in a river or a lake. So that was extremely shocking, coming from someone that doesn't really like cats. I'm more of a dog person myself, but it was really disturbing to read that, especially in a children's book. So the cat joins the crew of the donkey and the dog, and they go on their merry way to Bremen. And then they come across the fourth and final companion in their crew, and that is the Rooster. The Rooster, because his job is to crow when the sun rises and to announce the day. So the farmer's wife had some company over, I'm pretty sure, and the rooster was making so much noise and was disturbing the peace, and as a result, the farmer's wife wanted to kill the rooster and chop off its head and turn it into soup. This is something these animals tell each other what their previous owners wanted to do to them because they were either too old, lazy, or noisy. Something that they couldn't help doing or couldn't help achieving in life. I mean, we all get old, we all get lazy, and at some point during our lives, we are noisy at some point. And you may be thinking, well, this is exactly like Animal Farm by George Orwell, which I have read part of, how animals rebel against mankind. And even though these animals are really dependent of one another and they are always working with each other without the interference of man, they don't really discriminate against mankind or humanity. They don't look down upon it. They don't rebel against it. They just ignore it and push it to the side and just say, right, humanity is over there, but we are here and we are doing our own thing, and so we're not going to even acknowledge that they exist, and we're just going to do our own separate thing over here. So when our four companions are going to Bremen to play their music, which at one point in the book it says that they were playing musical instruments. Not sure why they chose to be musical, but they know that it's going to take them a while to get to this town. So they go into a forest, and in the forest they come across a cabin. And it's obvious that people are in this cabin. There's lights on, there's smoke coming out from the chimneys, all that type of stuff. And when they look in the windows, they see what the book describes as a bunch of robbers. And the robbers are just sitting at a table with all this food in front of them, and they're just eating and not really being a nuisance or causing any trouble or being violent or anything like that. So the animals decide that they want to eat this food, so they come up with a plan. I wouldn't say it's an ingenious plan, but it's a plan of some sort, where they climb on each other's backs and make their respective noises that these animals make. So the dog climbs on the donkey's back, the cat climbs on the dog's back, and the rooster goes on the back of the cat. And then they make their noises, and this is described to being so horrific that it shatters the windows in the cabin, and the robbers hear this and are so terrified by this noise that they have no idea what makes this noise or what's happening, that they flee in terror into the woods. And the animals go into the cabin and they eat the food, and then at one point the robbers look at the cabin and they don't see any signs of life. They don't know what's happening, so the leader, who is called the captain, tells one of his colleagues to go to the cabin and check it out to see what's happening. So when he goes in there, I mean, these robbers aren't violent or anything like that. They don't have guns. They aren't violent in any way. They're just men that are in this story. So this individual goes into this cabin and he doesn't do anything violent or anything weird. He just looks around, and then he is attacked by the animals, which is a unprovoked attack. And then he goes back to his captain and he tells the captain that there is a witch in this house, and they flee in terror and they say, right, we are never going to come back here again. We are gone. And the story is left off with the animals staying in this house or this cabin. So this was a really interesting story. I had to Google it to find out when it was published, because this was published in 1819, and I just wanted to see if George Orwell was inspired by this, because I wanted to see what came out first. And obviously this came out first, and Animal Farm came out in 1945. Pretty sure that was a year. I'm sure someone's going to correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. But I do not know if George was inspired by this story when he was writing Animal Farm, but I'm going to say that he was, because the comparisons between this story and Animal Farm are really, really close together. The only difference that I can find out or can see is that the animals in this story aren't rebelling against humanity. They don't look down upon it. They don't look at man with extreme hatred and dislike. Yes, they do try to protect themselves against humanity and against human invaders, but they are just trying to live and try to survive and do their own thing. And it's never really discussed about if they ever do make it to Bremen or whether they just stay in the cabin. It's never really discussed, don't you, any further. I mean, when I was commenting on some comments on the previous episode of this series, I was saying about how amazing it was about how children's literature has evolved from back then to now. I mean, I know that I can't ask anyone that was alive in 1819 to tell me what they thought when they read this story or read this as a child, because sadly they are no longer with us. But if you know anyone, I mean, if it was passed down in your family about their experiences when they read not just this story but any of the Grimm fairy tales, the original ones, I would really be interested to see about what they made of it. Were they disturbed? Were they upset? Were they full of joy? Because despite the fact that these stories, not just this one, but all of the ones I've actually read so far, they do throw something really unconventional at you that's going to shock you, but they are really full of charm. But they aren't really something that's appropriate for children to read now. I suppose that's why they were watered down or dumbed down, I suppose. But if you were read this as a child, please let me know what you thought about this. So the next story that I'm going to be reading is called Little Red Cap. So I presume this has something to do with Little Red Riding Hood, but like the first story that I read in this book, which is called The Golden Goose, it has taught me that I should never guess what these stories are all about, because chances are they're going to be something completely different. So with all that out of the way, have a great day, read some awesome books, and I will see you all in my next video.